All right, let's dive into something really specific and honestly pretty fascinating. We're going to look at a set of ancient purity laws from the book of Leviticus, all about what happened right after a woman gave birth. So that's the big question, right? What did these laws actually say? And one thing to get straight right off the bat, we're not talking about medical hygiene here. This was all about ritual purity, being ceremonially clean or unclean. So let's get right to the source and see what it says. And here it is. Our source for all of this is Leviticus chapter 12. The text tells us these were the instructions given to Moses, meant for the ancient Israelites. And man, it lays out a super precise formula for what a woman was supposed to do after having a baby.
Okay, first up, the rules for having a boy. This whole thing was laid out as a 40-day journey with a couple of really distinct phases.
So the moment a baby boy is born, the clock starts. The first phase is a 7-day period where the mother is considered ritually unclean, and the text actually gives a reference point for this, comparing it to her normal period of separation. It was a state they were already familiar with. Then, bang, on the 8th day, and it had to be the 8th day, a really important ritual happens for the son. He's circumcised. Now, you might think that ends the whole process for the mom. But nope, her journey is far from over. From there, she moves into a second, much longer phase. We're talking about another 33 days. The text calls this the blood of her purifying, and it was a totally separate stage with its own unique set of rules. So what does purifying actually mean here? It's interesting. She wasn't technically unclean anymore, but she was still set apart. The rules were really specific. She couldn't touch any hallowed thing, sacred objects used for worship, and she was not allowed to go into the sanctuary, the most holy spot, until those 33 days were up. Okay, now this is where it gets really interesting. What happens if the baby is a girl? The whole process changes pretty dramatically. The structure is kind of the same, but you're about to see that all the timelines get doubled. Right away, there's a huge difference. For a daughter, that first period of being unclean isn't 7 days. The text says 2 weeks. That's 14 days, literally double the time for a son. And yeah, that doubling pattern just keeps on going. After those first 2 weeks are over, that second purifying phase kicks in. And for the mother of a baby girl, that period lasts for 66 days. 66! So let's just lay this out so it's crystal clear. For a boy, 7 days unclean plus 33 days purifying, that's 40 days total. For a girl, 14 days unclean plus 66 days purifying for a grand total of 80 days. It is exactly, precisely double the time. No ambiguity there. Okay, so you've made it through the 40 days or the 80 days. What happens now? Well, whether it was a boy or a girl, there was one last step, a final ritual to complete the whole process and get her status fully restored. And this final step was called an atonement offering. Now, it's really important to understand what this means. We're not talking about asking for forgiveness for some kind of sin. This was all about the ritual. It was a formal ceremony led by a priest that officially marked her transition back from that state of separation to being ritually clean again. And the procedure itself was super straightforward. Once her time was up, the woman would personally bring an offering to the priest, right there at the tabernacle entrance. The priest does his thing, he presents the offering, the atonement is made, and boom, the text says she is officially cleansed. This next part is actually one of my favorite details in this whole chapter because it shows how the law dealt with real-world economics. The standard offering was a lamb plus a pigeon or a turtle dove. But what if you couldn't afford a lamb? The law had a provision for that. It explicitly says she could just bring 2 pigeons or 2 turtle doves instead. And here's the beautiful part. It didn't matter one bit which offering she brought, whether it was the expensive lamb or the 2 little birds. The text is crystal clear that the result was exactly the same. The atonement was made, and she was clean. It made sure everyone, rich or poor, had access to this ritual. So, we've walked through the whole process, and it brings us right back to the big, hanging question, the one that people have been debating for literally centuries. The law in Leviticus is so precise about the what and the how, right? The timelines, the offerings, it's all there. But it gives us absolutely zero explanation for the why. It just leaves us to wonder, what was the thinking behind a law that made a mother wait twice as long just because she had a daughter?